Hey folks, this is Kalani. The Midnight expansion is almost here, with early access opening up in just a week's time, so you may feel like you're running out of time to lock in your main character for the new adventures awaiting us. There is a lot to look forward to, but what class should you experience everything on first? Do you roll with a tried and true, a favourite DPS that has never let you down, or do you change things up for once and try something new? Well, we've got some useful tips that might make this extremely tough decision a bit easier to work through, so in this video we're going to ask and answer the age-old question: how do you pick a main character for a new World of Warcraft expansion? Now before we jump in, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss another video. Now, if we're ever going to chip away at this monolith of a question, we need to start with roles. What role do you want to play, or what roles do you want to have access to when choosing a main class? Because if you want to tank, mages don't make too much sense. If you want to heal, well, a warlock won't quite fit either. Are you okay with just being able to DPS? Maybe you want to skip over some Qs sometime as a tank or healer, or just change things up, in which case you'd need a class that has access to more than just one role. The roles that a class has access to is incredibly important, as that dictates how your character will interact with the world and how your class will play during various types of content. Whether you want to focus on solo content like delves, prey, world quests or story quests, jump into group content like dungeons or raids, or try your hand at PvP. All of that is going to look very different through the eyes of a DPS versus a healer versus a tank, so your role is the most important choice to narrow down first. But what if you don't really know what role you want to roll with this time around? Or maybe you're new to the game and don't really understand what each role might entail. Well, let's try and figure that out first. Let's go through each role, talk about what their purpose is, what they're good at, and how important each one is and why. Hopefully we can narrow this down and find you something you can get invested in. Let's start with the tanks, because they're arguably the most important role in any kind of group content. Tanks lead the way, mainly because if anyone else gets hit first, they'll be checking the floor for cracks until they hit their release button. Tanks need to keep all of the attention or aggro of mobs on themselves, they take all of the damage to keep everyone else safe, so everyone else can fulfill their own roles. A dead DPS does no DPS after all, so you need a tank to hold that front line. You won't survive for very long in any kind of group content without a tank, so that's why they're so important. That's also why they have some of the fastest queue times for any kind of queuable content, and you can usually find a group very quickly for things like Mythic Plus dungeons or raid groups. Tanks also tend to dictate the pace of any content where they are needed, pulling monsters and gathering them up, choosing which route to take through a dungeon, and how quickly you move from pack to pack. Tanks really do lead the way, but that comes with some extra responsibility. You're kind of expected to know where to go, which means tanks tend to have a bit more homework when compared to other roles. But if figuring out the best ways through a dungeon and taking charge of your group sounds fantastic, then tanks might be a good fit for you. If you don't want to take the lead, or you aren't very confident in your tanking, that can have a negative effect on your gameplay. And if you aren't enjoying yourself, well then what's the point? The good news is that playing a tank can be very rewarding, both mentally and monetarily. It's very satisfying moving quickly through a dungeon, pulling each pack perfectly, fine-tuning your pulls so you can aggro as much as possible without anyone dying. That is a great feeling. And then getting into content faster, whether that's joining a random queue or signing up for pre-made groups, can help you gear up much faster as well. As a quick note for tanks in Mythic Plus specifically, there will be a new affix in Midnight that highlights monsters that you can kill for an easy to follow route through each dungeon. It might not be the most efficient route, but it will guide you through the dungeon, through each boss, and you'll have all the trash kills required to fill up the bar. So learning the new dungeons and tanking in Mythic Plus specifically could be much easier in the new expansion. Now the other super important role are the healers. If the tank is doing their job right, they're taking all of the damage, but they're going to need some support to stay alive, and that's where the healers come in. Healers keep everyone alive, so the tanks can keep tanking, and the DPS can keep standing in fire. Keep DPSing. I personally think healing is the hardest role out of the three. It seems pretty simple on paper, keep everyone from dropping to 0 health, but for the most part, everyone is relying on you. If the tank goes down, everyone else will quickly follow suit. If the DPS die, there's no damage coming out to actually kill anything anymore, and when you start looking at larger group content like raids, the other healers will be relying on you at least a little bit as well. So healing can be quite stressful. You are the main thing standing between victory and defeat, which means it's very common for healers to get a lot of flack, even if it's not their fault. It's just very, very easy to blame the healer if someone dies, even if that particular DPS has been standing in the fire for the last minute and a half. Unfortunately, a lot of bad players tend to blame the healers first, and even if they're wrong, that blame is never going to feel great. But just as with tanking, healing can be incredibly satisfying when everything goes right. You can carry all kinds of content as a good healer, and saving the day with a quick external cooldown on the tank or a well-timed raid cooldown feels amazing. The tanks and healers are definitely the keys to any successful group content in WoW, but they can end up being more stressful roles due to those extra responsibilities, so just keep that in mind. That leaves us with the last role, the DPS. Now, even though I said the tanks and healers are the cornerstones of any good group, DPS is still very important. The higher your DPS, the faster everything dies, and typically the easier content is going to be. That's not an excuse to make the tanks or healers' job harder though. You want to make sure you're doing your best to stay alive by using your defensives, drinking healing potions if needed, and preferably not standing in the fire. DPS are split into two main camps, the melee and the ranged. Melee DPS tend to play a bit faster and require a bit of button mashing to get their rotations going. They also have to be right up against whatever they want to whack, which will be great if you love being in the thick of things, but this means they do tend to have more abilities or mechanics that they need to dodge. Thankfully, they also have much more freedom of movement when compared to ranged. You can move around as much as you want to on most melee specs and you won't lose any DPS. So you should be able to dodge those extra mechanics no problem. On the other side, ranged get to sit back and blast their target from afar, which is usually quite a bit safer. It also gives you a decent view of the entire battlefield, allowing you to react to mechanics quite comfortably. The drawback for most ranged specs is their reliance on casting spells, most of which require you to stand still, which can make moving around a bit harder and more punishing on your overall damage output. If you're spending all your time moving around, you won't be dealing all that much damage. Maximizing your DPS as a ranged usually comes from learning mechanics and encounters, so you can plan for periods of heavy movement and knowing when you can blast your cooldowns. If you're interested in trying something you've never played before, I would highly encourage you to check out some follower dungeons. Follower dungeons let you learn at your own pace, there's no other players to worry about and no one complaining that you're going the wrong way or playing a class wrong. Just you, a team of NPCs with no time pressures, and you don't even have to finish the dungeon if you don't want to. It's perfect for testing the waters for tanking or healing especially. So don't let anything stop you. If you want to learn a new role, go for it. Follower dungeons are the perfect way to try something new and get some practice in. So hopefully at this point you know what kind of role you want to fill and if you want to have some choices to change things up. But that only gets us so far. There are so many tanks, so many healers, and literally everyone can DPS, so how do we narrow this down a bit further to actually pick a class? One of the most important things to me when picking a class to play is the overall theme. If you don't like dark magic and death, then Warlocks or Death Knights might not be for you. If you don't really care for the Holy Light theme, Paladins or Priests might not be a great fit either. Playing something that fits your vibe will give you the best chance of sticking with a class. That's what really keeps folks playing the same thing for 10 years or even longer. Take the tanks for example, they all have the same goal, but they go about it in completely different ways. Warriors are all about brute strength and shrugging off the pain, darting between enemies with their various charges and leaps. Paladins wield the light as their mighty bulwark, consecrating the ground and throwing their shield Captain America style to pull everything towards them. Druids take the form of a massive bear with increased health and defense, clawing and shredding their enemies to pieces. Death Knights tap into dark runic powers to ward themselves from danger and sap the strength from their foes. Monks focus on dodging attacks, chugging brews, and staggering damage over time, which is quite unique and very powerful in certain situations. And then demon hunters are imbued with demonic magic, which allows them to rend souls from their enemies to heal themselves. Each tank plays very differently, with unique animations and effects, so if something sounds really cool or interesting, that could be your new main. Over on the healing side of things, you'll find just as much variety. Do you want to save your group members' lives by using nature-based spells and heal over time effects like the druids, or tap into the raw elemental powers of Azeroth to protect and heal up your allies as a shaman? Monks offer a different approach with celestial mists with the option of weaving in punches and kicks to contribute some damage while healing. Evokers have a lot of mobility and utility, like being able to pick up and reposition your friends for better or worse while using the power of the green and bronze dragonflight to great effect, and then the priests and paladins tap into the powers of the holy light to heal in a few different ways. And then for the DPS, I think theme matters the most. Every single class can DPS and there's quite a lot of overlap, so the theme is really what sets them apart. All of the melee will be getting up close and personal with their targets, but their choice of weapon will vary quite dramatically. Do you want to be stabbing the boss's butt with a pair of daggers, or swing the largest two-handed sword you can get your hands on? Do you want to deal your damage through raw strength, a little bit of trickery, or do you want some magic thrown into the mix? There's a lot of variety just between the different melee DPS, so I'm sure you can find something that sounds interesting to you. Now, over on the ranged side, you'll find the exact same thing. There are a lot of casters, but some are focused on standard magic schools like Fire, Frost, and Arcane, while others channel Fell energy to summon demons and curse their foes. Others channel Primal Fire and Lightning to zap their foes, and there are even classes that tap into the power of the Void, turning it against those who would invade our world. Most ranged DPS will be casting spells, which tends to mean a lot of standing still, with the main exception being hunters, so that is something else to keep in mind. Now, if you're just looking for the easiest classes to play, I can help you out with some suggestions there. If you're looking for a tank that's easy to pick up and play, I would recommend trying out Paladin. They have a very easy to understand toolkit. They've got some great defensives so when things get spicy, including an AoE taunt while being completely immune to damage, so that's a huge get out of jail free card. They have some good self heals if your healer starts to struggle, and then they have one of the best ranged abilities in Avenger's Shield for quickly pulling mobs and generating initial aggro. If you're looking for an easy to play healer, I would stick with a priest. Holy Priest has always been my recommendation for players looking to start their healing adventures. They have quite simple abilities, but they have good answers to every situation. You've got strong single target heals, good AoE heals, powerful raid cooldowns, preemptive and overtime heals, and you bring some good utility to any group, including that highly coveted power infusion. If you want to change things up, you also have access to discipline. For the easiest DPS, my answer will always be the same. It's got to be Hunters, especially Beast Mastery Hunter. Beast Mastery Hunters have unlimited mobility, they don't need to stand still to cast any of their spells, but they get to stay safe with all of the other ranged. They get the best of both worlds. On top of that, they also come with a built-in personal tank to keep aggro while you're out in the world or progressing through solo content, which can make things so much easier so you can reach higher tiers of delves faster, or clear more difficult prey targets to earn better rewards. They're easy to play and have so many tools to stay alive and avoid taking damage, making them one of the best solo content classes and one of the best classes in general if you are new to the game. Now there is a new contender here with the release of Midnight. Devourer Demon Hunters are also an incredibly mobile, somewhat ranged DPS spec. They do have a few spells they need to stand still to cast, and they don't have quite as much range when compared to the Hunters, or most ranged DPS for that matter, but they are very easy to play and they fill a sort of melee role. So if you want to be a bit closer to your target and don't like the idea of playing Hunter, Devourer Demon Hunters might be a good choice for an easy to pick up and play class or spec. You can then also dabble with Havoc for that pure melee playstyle, or dip your toes into tanking with Vengeance, so Demon Hunters are a great option too. Now I will say that the huge class overhauls for the Midnight expansion did make almost every class and spec much easier to play in general, so I would try to find something that you really enjoy. Chances are it's not that much more difficult when compared to Beast Mastery Hunter these days. But what if you want to play the strongest class, the beefiest tank, the best healer, or the chart-topping DPS? You can do that. It's not an impossible ask or want. There will always be a best class for each role. The problem is that class is going to change, and it can change very quickly. Hunters might start off being top DPS in the first week of the expansion, but when the tuning changes start coming through, as they always do, mages could suddenly take that top spot. If they're doing too well a week or two down the line, they could get nerfed as well, leaving the warlocks on top. The start of an expansion is one of the most volatile times for balance tuning changes, so if your goal is to always play the best class and chase that flavor of the month best in show experience, you will probably end up swapping classes a lot. If that sounds enjoyable and you really want to chase that top DPS spot, the best recommendation I have for you is to spend the first week or two of the expansion just leveling up your ults. That way, when the tuning changes inevitably turn the tables, your next character will already be leveled up and you just have to catch them up on the gearing front. If that doesn't sound like a good time, I would revisit the other points in this video and try to pick a class that really resonates with you. That way you can have fun playing the game even if you aren't topping the charts in any given week. At this point, if you just simply can't decide, that's actually okay. Thanks to the warband system that was introduced in The War Within, most of your progress is account-wide. So even if you hop between characters as often as you change your underwear, you won't actually lose that much progress in most features and systems. You'll have those achievements, transmogs, titles, mounts, reputation progress, feature unlocks and progress, important and story quest completions, and you'll even get discounts while gearing up and faster leveling speeds. Playing multiple characters really isn't that bad anymore, and in some instances can actually be quite beneficial, so feel free to pick a few mains if you just can't decide. As for me, I'll be leveling my mage first and planning on playing that as my main character, but I'll also have my demon hunter, hunter, and paladin leveled up very quickly to give me one of each armor class, and so I can set up all of my professions to be self-sufficient as quickly as possible. But what about you? What are you going to focus on when deciding which character to play first in the new Midnight expansion? Is there a class that you've already settled on, or are you still struggling to find that one class to call your own? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon and to all of our members here on YouTube. You can see their names floating by on screen. If you're interested in supporting the channel, you can find links in the description or click the join button just below the video. If you enjoyed the video or found it useful in any way, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you're always kept up to date. Thanks for watching, folks. Good luck and have fun, and as always, I will see you next time.